1 minute until 12. Sarah here, aka the Business Fixer. So today we are talking about how to overcome sales objections, what's really stopping your clients from saying yes. This is something that I think so many businesses struggle with. It's hard enough sometimes to get the leads into the ecosystem, and then it's about converting. And I think a lot of, particularly in the professional service-based businesses, they don't like sales conversations. They don't like being referred to as a salesperson. In reality, if you are basically offering any form of service or product, you're in sales. And that is something that you really need to get into your mind. Every time you're speaking to a prospect, have that initial, for example, you're a law firm, that initial 30-minute free consultation that you might offer, you are effectively, there is a sales pitch in there in some form or other. It's just the fact that you just need to think about it in a different context. Now, some of you may well be quite comfortable in terms of getting to the point where you, for example, when I do a strategy session, what I'm doing is I'm establishing a bit about the business themselves. I'm establishing where the business owner wants to be, where are they now, what's stopping them from getting there, and then the pitch bit kind of comes in. Now, pitch, sometimes it feels very salesy, but sales don't need to feel sales and pushy. It doesn't need to feel like that. It is about coming from a place of clarity, a place of service, ultimately. Okay, so we can get to the point, say, for example, you're in a consultation and you're getting to the bit about, you've given them the advice, which you'll feel quite comfortable with, but it's then actually getting the yes out of them to proceed. And I think in certain industries, it's certainly easier perhaps than others, right? Now, when you've walked them through the value, you've shown them how your service can effectively solve their problem, and you get to that point where they nod, they smile, they say it all sounds great, and then they hit you with I just need to think about it. Now, this is where a lot of people will be like, okay, no worries, I'll touch base with you next week, etc. And that would be the end of it. No, right? This is where I know this phrase leaves a lot of service-based business owners wondering what went wrong. But here's the truth. Most people miss that this is a point of objection. It's not rejection. They're signs. There's clues that something deeper is going on beneath the surface, right? So if you really want to improve your conversion rate, build your trust, protect your pricing, because this is what often happens. You get to that point of they just need to think about it. And I know in certain services, certainly not law firms, but generally in a lot of services, that's when you'll be like, oh, thinking that you need to drop the price. No, it's not about, this point is not about discounting, right? It really is not. You've got to be able to really get to grips of what's really stopping your prospect from saying yes, and then how to deal with that confidently without second guessing yourself or sounding like one of those pushy salespeople that we really don't want to sound like, right? The objections aren't the problem. Where the problem becomes, it's the avoidance, right? So when someone raises an objection, you've got to make sure you switch your mindset that it's not a sign that you failed. In fact, it means that they're engaged. They're still in the conversation. The real danger isn't in the objection. It's the hesitation that goes unspoken because you didn't create a space to explore it. Really listen to that. You need to give them that real opportunity to explore their thought process, right? And for so many of you, you'll freeze at that first sign of pushback. And you, like I said, you'll be like, okay, no worries. Just let me know. Right? you'll, like I say, you'll either backpedal, offer a discount, or, like I say, retreat in that polite phrase of no worries, just let me know. What you don't realize you're doing is you're actually avoiding those objections. It's basically what's going to happen is they're going to go away and they'll eventually will say no. It's leading to an inevitable no, because you haven't actually dealt with the questions that they have, right? It's not charisma that necessarily closes a sale. It's confidence, right? And that confidence really is in how you handle the objections head on without flinching, okay? So think about it this way: what a client says versus what they mean. So, for example, we've all heard the line, "It's too expensive." They're rarely talking about the price alone. What they're talking about here is the perceived value. They're questioning whether they believe the result you offer is worth the investment. They're questioning in whether they will trust that you can deliver, right? Can they really see the pain of staying where they are is greater than the discomfort of moving forward, right? So these are things that you need to really make sure that you are addressing. And I'm going to give you some ways in a moment that will actually help with this, right? So if they say the phrase, "I need to think about it," it's not a literal request for more time. It's a safety mechanism. It's a sign that something doesn't yet feel safe, clear, or certain enough for them to say yes. They are more than likely probably wanting to say yes, but they just need a bit more to be able to get them over the line. Now, it isn't your job to push through the objections. What's actually your job is to slow down, stay grounded, and ask the right questions and give them the clarity. It's not to close the sale at all costs. It's to open up that space for clarity, for them to really fully understand what you can do for them, and them in their minds be absolutely crystal clear that, one, you're the right person, two, that you can actually deliver the results, and three, that actually it is better to move forward now rather than stay in the pain that they are feeling, right? The objection is the doorway for them to say yes. It is not a barrier. When you handle these objections with calm assurance, you will then be turning a no into a meaningful conversation. That builds trust and often leads to the most committed clients, right? So instead of jumping to solutions, dropping your price, or walking away too soon, try some of these examples instead. So if someone says to you, "I'm not sure," ask, would it help to talk through what's on your mind? So there's no pressure there. What you're doing is giving them that opportunity to seek clarification. When someone says, "I need to speak with my partner," respond with, "Of course, would it help if we mapped out how this could work so you feel confident in explaining it to them?" Another option is actually saying, that you welcome having a call with all of the partners, to answer any questions that they may have. It's about being of service and giving them clarity so that they feel comfortable in saying yes. They may well say, "I've worked with someone before and it didn't get the result I expected." You're responding with, "That makes total sense. Would it help if I explained how our process is different and how we make sure we don't end up in the same place again?" What you need to make sure is you're meeting these objections with understanding and empathy, helping them ensure that they feel heard and understood. And then you are trying to then address in a polite and calm way any of those concerns. Another common one is when someone says, "I don't have time right now." Again, you're responding with empathy. Totally understand. If you don't mind me asking, what would need to change for this to become a priority? Again, you're trying to understand exactly where they're at. There's a favorite phrase that I learned from somebody where it says it's about meeting them where they are at. Okay. They may well turn around and say, we're looking at a few other options. Then you respond with, absolutely, that's smart. What's most important to you when deciding who to go with? Again, you're getting them to actually get some clarity, and you'll also want to have a better understanding of where they're at. When someone says, I can't afford it, now this is a big one, right? Respond with, I hear you. It's a big investment. Can I ask, are you saying it's genuinely out of budget, or is it just difficult to justify right now? I only ask so I can understand where we go from here. Because sometimes people genuinely, they genuinely can't afford it. It's more than what they thought it was going to be. Or there is some difference in between where you have tried to explain the value that you provide and they can't actually match that, and they feel like they can't justify it in their mind to spend that money, right? So if they truly can't afford it, then you honour that by saying something along the lines of, I completely understand if it's not financially viable right now, that's okay. Would it be helpful if I pointed you towards a lower commitment option or something you could work on in the meantime? Again, what you're doing is you're giving them something of value. You are trying to help them move along the process, but without pushing. You're being of service and giving them clarity, right? If they could afford it but are hesitating on value, this is your chance to reframe. So this is about reframing the value in which you clearly have demonstrated, but not enough. It sounds like the return on investment isn't quite clear yet. Would it help if we looked again at the outcomes and what it could cost you financially and emotionally to stay where you are? Now, this isn't about putting pressure. It's about clarity. You're helping them get out of the short-term thinking and reconnect with the bigger picture of what they're trying to achieve. Helping them refocus on the problem that they have right now and demonstrating how you are the solution to that, okay? This isn't necessarily about clever lines. It's about being present. It's listening without defensiveness and knowing your value well enough that you can hold your ground in those conversations, not shirk away. So this is where confidence genuinely changes everything, right? So the reason why most business owners or salespeople struggle with objections, it isn't because they don't know what to say. It's because they're questioning and don't trust what they're offering. Deep down, they fear they might not be worth it. That doubt seeps into the conversation. If you are hesitant, so for example, with pricing, this is a big thing, right? So many people struggle with this, with the prospect of giving a number, right? And if you don't feel that you are worth that number, that will come across in the sales conversation. They will pick up on it subconsciously. So if you're questioning your own numbers and your own pricing, you've got no chance of being able to then get that person over the line because they're going to follow your lead, right? So this is where you need to really feel confident in your own worth. Confidence doesn't mean bulldozing your way through the resistance. It means knowing the difference your service makes and being willing to stand for that without shrinking, apologizing, or chasing the sale. If you truly believe that you can give them the solution that your prospect needs right now, you stand in that confidence. You believe that actually the value you can give is worth the price in which they have to pay for it, right? When you show up with that certainty, quiet certainty, it's not this whole, like I say, this whole charisma and this whole like in your face. It's in your tone. It's, how you present yourself. Your client will feel it. You'll be creating that kind of energy that helps them feel safe, understood, and supported in making that big decision. Because let's face it, saying yes to working with you means change for your prospect, and change, even for people who are positive about change, can feel uncomfortable. Your role isn't just about explaining the service. It's to guide someone through the discomfort of their decision making, right? And this is what often gets forgotten when in the sale. You're so focused on trying to explain your service that actually you're not helping them make the decision, right? Just remember though, closing isn't just the only goal. It's the result of clarity, right? Don't get me wrong, great salespeople are great closers. If you think about, for example, if you've ever seen the program Suits, and Harvey Specter literally talk about him being the best closer in the town, right? But it's not about being pushy or persuading as such, right? There is an underlying element, but it's not in a forced way. You're guiding them. You're going to be able to close it because they're listening, right? You're listening, so you can close because you are listening. You're tuning into what the client is or the prospect is really saying. You're asking the right questions, and you're providing the clarity that is needed for them to make that confident decision. Can you see the difference, right? When a prospect has that clarity about the outcome, the values, and the next step, the decision then becomes easy. The close happens naturally without pressure. It's not about being slick. It's about helping someone see that staying stuck where they are will cost them far more than moving forward. So yes, the goal is to close, but the path to that goal is paved with clarity, trust, and confidence, right? You don't need to be charming your way through the conversation. You don't need to put on the full persuasive, pushy process. You just need to be confident enough to stay in the conversation, because the moment you stop seeing objections as obstacles and start seeing them as opportunities to connect, clarify, and lead, you'll realize what's really stopping them from saying yes isn't the objection. It's your fear of facing it. And that's something we all have the power to change, right? So if you are ready to start closing with confidence, and you believe that perhaps objections are keeping you stuck in the sales process, or you are second guessing how to handle them, we can fix that. With the right tools, clarity, and support, you can lead every sales conversation with confidence and convert more of the right clients without pressure or self-doubt. And the best way in which we can potentially help you with that is if you book in a free strategy session, and we can explore what's really holding your sales back and how we can change it. Because ultimately, your business should work for you, not the other way around. So if you would like to be able to book in a free strategy session, then I simply ask you just to put the word strategy in the comments, and we can have a chat and we can explore how we can potentially work together. Now, if you found today's live helpful, I would ask please that you can, if you haven't already, click the subscribe button. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you click the subscribe button. If you are watching on Instagram, make sure you're following me. If you're watching on YouTube, on LinkedIn, make sure you're connected with me. This only goes specifically live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, but I will try and make sure that I'm starting to then put these also on TikTok and on Instagram, if that is possible. So Thank you, guys. Like I say, please make sure that you follow me for more hints and tips. Hope you found this helpful. Even if you're not watching it live and you've got questions, please do put them in the comments or reach out to me. And I will see you again next week.